Gonna start from your thing. Record and share. Okay, so I'm here with my dad, who is a retired company commander after 22 years. That was somebody's question, how long you were in the military. But during the conflict we talked about, he was in the 82nd Airborne. Dad, could you start with why you went to Grenada and what was your job there?
Sure. I was a combat infantryman slash medic, and the reason we went to Grenada is that the Caribbean Union of countries asked Ronald Reagan, who was our president then, to come down and help them out because the communists had taken over the island.
So how did it feel to keep such a big secret from your wife?
Well, I had no choice. Back in those days, of course, there were no cell phones or computers. So what they do is they rip the MPs, which is the military police, they rip out all the phones out of the walls, and all the pay phones, had no phones, so you can't call. So we knew something was up, but they don't tell you what's happening until they get you behind in the contingency control point, where they have you behind barbed wire fence and with armed MPs walking around with shotguns, and then they tell you what's going on, so that if you try to get out, you get shot.
That's crazy. How was the flight to the island? Like, was it very crowded?
Well, of course, you're on an airplane, you're on a C-130 with 83 other people. C-130 holds 84 people with full gear and parachutes. So yes, probably.
Yeah. And you got sick, if I remember.
Well, when you fly low over the map of the Earth, it makes you nauseated, and you can end up vomiting and stuff. But the Air Force, they always give us a little envelope with a puke bag in it, so you just use that before you get out. You just let go of it.
Gross. What was the tension like on the plane before you jumped?
Well, it was a little bit tense because we were told when we were leaving that there were armored vehicles on the drop zone, which the drop zone was around Salinas Point, that's the airport that the Cubans were building for. They were going to build a communist, Russian supported communist based airstrip slash communist base where they could have supplies and planes there, because they wanted to more in South America and Central America. But anyway, the tension was high because they told us that there were these armored vehicles on the drop zone. Actually, right before we got on the plane, one guy kind of freaked out, and the MPs had to take him away. And on the plane, it was kind of quiet, and I was just thinking, I was pissed off because I had just paid a down payment on an apartment, and I thought I was going to lose my deposit because I didn't know how long it would be gone. But my sergeant sitting next to me says, "Hey, Mac, if you see anybody flipping out, let me know." He says, "I'll put them down with a 45. And so, yeah, so tension was a little high. But me, I was always kind of a smart aleck, and I said, "You want me to shoot him with a 16? And he said, "No, you'll put a hole in the skin of the aircraft."
What was running through your head as you jumped off the plane? Like, what were emotions or fears?
Of course, as we get off the plane, we think, "Oh, we don't want to get shot." Emotions like, I want to just get off this plane as soon as I can and get to like the control point was where we would meet and organize and move out with our mission. Yeah.
I know too, you told me right before you jumped that everyone was like getting pumped up.
Yeah, well, that's kind of every jump when the plane's doors open, and it's usually when you're about 10 minutes out from the jump, they'll give you the 10-minute warning. They'll say 10 minutes and the door open, and then everybody starts getting, it's like you're at a football game. Everybody's like yelling and screaming and getting excited. And then when they make a stand up and hook up, I mean, people are stamping their feet and all this. It's just, it really gets you going, gets you like ramped up, getting ready to go, you know. Yeah.
So some kids asked me about this, and I didn't really have an answer. I know you were trained on how to land, but is it hard to land on the ground?
It's always hard to land on the ground, but we do go through extensive training for parachute jumps. And I had to do, we do this practice on the ground where you practice landing, parachute landing fall like probably thousands of times. And then we did even harder. Well, the ground is hard, but exiting the door, correct, the aircraft, we had to do that correctly too. And you had to get 4 of them that were perfect before that they would let you pass that point, the ground point. Because you look out, they have you jumping out of a door. You're actually hooked up to a cable on your harness, so you're not going to fall to the ground. But it's 34 feet high, which psychologically they found is the scariest height to jump from. So when you jump out, you're like ready to go, and all of a sudden, you know. The thing is, you have to do it right. So as soon as you get 4 of them right, then you're good, and then you're ready to jump out of the plane.
Nice.
Yeah.
Were you scared when you landed on the island? And if yes, what did you do to have confidence?
I'm gonna be honest. Like when we first jumped in there, it was kind of quiet, and then we started thinking, "Is this like are we in Florida? Is this a training mission?" Then all of a sudden, some bullets started flying, and you know, they were actually they were yellow tracers, and we have red, and so we knew they weren't ours. Oh. And bullets were flying, and people were getting hit, and I'm like, okay, this is real. So then, you know, we kind of got down and we kind of moved into our locations. Yeah.
What did you do first on the island?
Well, that was a Monday. That I think that was October 25th. Actually, when we got there, it was dark, and first thing we did is got together with our groups. The Rangers were there too. They were actually there right before we were, and they were already set up, and we were kind of like walking through their areas to where they were set up and had a perimeter set up. And we got to our area, and we kind of set up to what we were going to do. What our mission was the following day was get into the True Blue Medical School, which was only a couple hundred yards away, and not capture but rescue the medical students there. And we did. We went in there, and that was not till morning when the light came up. We went in there and got those students, and they were very thankful we were there. And they were like, "Hey, you guys want some omelets?" like, I don't think we got time for that. But anyway, we took them out and we put them on C-140s, and then they had C-140s are the bigger Air Force. We jump out of those too, but they're the bigger ones, and they hold a lot of people. Some of them went to the Netherlands, and some of them went to the United States, and some of them went to Britain.
Nice. So this could be answered either way. What was a typical day like while you were in Grenada, or what was a typical day like as a medic?
Well, first of all, just a typical day in Grenada. It was hot. Like we got to remember, this was October 25th when we got there. Well, not even down in North Carolina, the temperatures are like in the 50s there. I mean, it's warmer than up here, of course, in Illinois, Wisconsin. It was 50s. And we had a heavier uniform, like the temperate BDUs. And we got down to Grenada, and it's 90 degrees. So we had a lot of soldiers having heat exhaustion because they were, not used to, walking around in 90-degree weather at that time of year with this uniform on, then carrying a pack on their back and a weapon and all that kind of stuff. So we had that. So we actually treated a lot of heat exhaustion cases too, more than casualties. But we would get sporadic gunfire, and we would get like occasionally people that actually got shot with AK-47s, and then some people got blown up by hand grenades, stuff like that. So we treated like chest and face extremities, and then we would like stabilize them, and then a helicopter would come in and they take them out to this ship.
Oh, okay. I think I heard that before.
Yeah, there was three big Navy ships right out in the pier
Okay.
that we could see, and that's what I was telling you that time we got in the firefight and the lieutenant called us back.
Oh,
We could see the jets taking off from the ships
Oh,
from where we
okay.
were.
okay. Do you want to elaborate on that since you brought it up?
Yeah. One day after securing the airstrip, which that was our job, and then getting those students, we moved towards St. George's, which is the capital of Grenada. And one day we just stopped and set up a perimeter to eat for like around lunchtime, And it was like that back then. It was like a two-way dirt highway, and there was like a little valley in between the two dirt roads, and there was a couple of those big round concrete pipes. One was on this side, one on that side. And I thought, man, this is a good place to have lunch because we're protected pretty well from snipers and stuff. Well, all of a sudden, from these houses across the street, we were taking gunfire. I mean, a lot of gunfire, and not just us, but my whole unit that were taking fire. Our Lieutenant Falkers, we call him Lieutenant Dan too. That was way before Forrest Gump, but he's like he's from Tennessee, so he had a little southern drawl. He's yelling at us because he's back on the other side of that other dirt road taking cover, and he says, y'all boys might want to move back this way. And we're like, hey, we can't move. We're being pinned down by gunfire. He said, well, I just called in the airstrike, and they're going to be here in 1 mic, which means 1 minute. And we looked out on that Navy ship, and we could see like 87 Corsairs, like jets, taking off. We're like, yeah, maybe you better get moving here. So they came in. We saw them take off, and I jumped up. I used to be really a lot faster than I am these days. But I jumped up, sprung across the road as quick as I could. Must have been like 2 seconds to get across there. And I hear and I look at this tree right behind me, like right above me, and there were 3 bullet holes there.
Thanks.
So I was pretty scared about that. But I thought, well, shit, they missed me. Well, excuse me, but I'm glad they missed me.
Yeah.
And my friend Barry Floyd, who couldn't be here with us now, he was in that same position as me. And he made it too. But then those jets came in, and they came in one time and strafed the houses with machine gun fire. And then the second time they came down, they dropped a bomb on the house and blew it up. And my platoon sergeant said, there goes the neighborhood.
That's funny. That actually, one of the kids had asked about the funny experience, but I think that's a good one. So that was one of your scariest experiences. Could you tell us about the other one?
Yeah, that was we were still there in October. We were there into November, actually. Remember, we don't stay in one place a long time because we're the rapid deployment force. We go in with the Rangers and some of the Marines, and we kind of get things under control, and then reinforcements come in, we pull out. But anyway, we're still there. We're at this place called the dentist office, because we're actually at a place where there was a dentist office, and our commander and our platoon leader and so forth, they were inside. That's where they spent the night. We had like foxholes dug all around it, and there was a creek there. And my friend Barry Floyd and I, we dug a really nice foxhole. We had all these big rocks out from the creek and put them around the front and around the sides. We were set pretty good. Well, right down from us about 50 to 75 feet was where the big gun was at. The 60 was the M60, the machine gun was at, right? Well, right after dark, we got fired upon, and the 60 opened up, because there were some people in the creek there. Not us. It was like the enemy. So he opened up, and then after that happened, and the platoon sergeant said, "All right, we gotta move the 60 up to your location. So one of you guys are gonna have to move." Because I outranked Floyd, I had to move, right? So I got put down where the 60 was, so they knew where that was. So I was worried right then, like, hey, they might think the gun's still here and blow me up. Well, but that wasn't the scary part. The scary part was later when um the sergeant of the guard came around and said, "Hey, don't if you hear somebody walking through the creek, don't fire. We just sent a patrol out, and they're going to be coming back right in front of you." So probably an hour later, I heard people walking in the creek, and I didn't fire upon them. I just stayed quiet, and this guy that was with me, which is another story, looked like he had 600 cups of coffee. He was very nervous. I told him to go to sleep because he was bothering me. Anyway, because every time something happened, he was
Well,
ready.
I'm sure though.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, so the sergeant of the guard comes around later and said, "Hey, how's it going out here?" And I said, "Well, we heard that patrol come by." And he goes, "How'd you do that? They came from the other way." So I'm like, "Oh man!" So that was some Cuban soldiers probably trying to sneak by us, but I didn't fire upon them because I thought it was our guys. I'm glad they didn't drop a hand grenade on me or something like that on the way out, just to, let me know they were there. So,
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was kind of scary too. But as far as taking care of casualties, I mean, we took care of, like I said, people shot in the chest, legs, face, and all that. I mean, that didn't scare me because that's what my job was, but it was the first time that I actually saw people injured to that extreme because I had just become a medic not a year before that. And before that, I hadn't really been in healthcare. I have to be honest too, it was the first time that I actually saw dead people from being killed from combat injuries.
And I know you and Barry had told me before that some of them were little kids too, right?
We did see that too. You guys probably studied this where right before the 82nd, the Marines and the Rangers got there were some children that were protesting, and they were taken out and they were all shot and they were laying on these rocks off this cliff. And those bodies were still there when we got there. Yeah, so we had I wasn't on that detail, but some of our guys helped
Bury them.
And do stuff with them. Yeah.
This is probably a good follow-up question to that. How did you stay positive while you were there?
Well, the people that were there were really glad we were there.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah, people would these two old ladies. They look like they've been walking for miles, and they brought us water, and we actually needed some water.
Yeah.
Because you don't know, we had to sanitize all our water down there.
Oh yeah.
So and they were so thankful. And then this one guy, I think he might have been some kind of a minister or holy man down there. He invited us to come to his house for dinner. We couldn't all go.
Yeah, there's a lot of people. Yeah.
one of the guys went,
Okay.
and they were so nice to him. And then we'd see graffiti that the Grenadians were putting up on walls and stuff. And one of them is still there on a rock, and it shows the double A's.
Oh, okay, for the airborne. Yeah, nice. Maybe this question will make you feel better. How was the food?
Food was not good.
I've told them that.
Yeah, the food wasn't that good. I didn't like the sea. We still had the sea rations.
Oh yeah.
Sea rations were from, I don't know if they were from World War II or Vietnam, but anyway, during that time the MREs came out. Now they talk about, you guys heard of MREs?
And some of the kids were talking about they've made them before or they know what they are.
We were the first people to get MREs, and that food was better.
Yeah.
Man, those crackers and cheese when they first came out were really good.
I love the pound cake too.
And the pound cake. Oh, it was all good stuff. But yeah, so
I have two more questions, and this is actually the second time we've recorded this because the first recording did not work. And the first recording, my dad's friend was with us talking and answering some of these questions. One of them want to know, are you still friends with the people you served with in Grenada?
Yeah, I do see. I'm friends with Barry Floyd that she talked about, and then another guy named Danny Holguin, which I want to tell that story real quick too. That was another time we were in a firefight. Danny Holguin, and then he went on to become a sergeant major too. And then who else? Tim McGowan.
Oh yeah.
Tim McGowan works for the CIA, but
Should they know that?
you'll never find him. You'll never find him. He's got a good cover. And he probably doesn't go by that name. So
If you had to do it again, would you? Well,
yes,
you would.
Yeah.
Okay.
yeah. Because at the time, I would still do it at my age. It might be a little more difficult, but at
Yeah,
the time
but with
we were
your skills.
young, and we wanted to do something for our country. Yeah, we were proud to be Americans and American soldiers, and we were as they are now. We were pretty well trained.
Those are all of the kids' questions. Is there anything else you want to tell them about or add?
Oh, I was just going to tell you that story about Danny Hogeen.
Oh, go ahead.
He was the driver of we had what's called a Gamma Goat. Now we've got Humvees, but back then we had the 6-wheel thing called a Gamma Goat. Anyway, he was the driver, right? And that had all of our medical supplies in it. But one of the firefights we were in was right in the middle, and it was starting to take bullets and stuff. And our commander's like, "You guys, you got to go move that goat." And he goes,
Yikes.
"Man, we're getting pinned down here." But he actually went out there, got in and drove it out of there.
Did he get like any medals
Yeah.
for that? Yeah.
Yeah, but he was scared though, and all he had was a 45, and he's got his head down. You could see his 45 going like this.
Oh gosh. I'm glad, yeah, you can find things funny.
Yeah.
And then there's one more. I want you to tell the story about your officer in charge talking to the press.
Oh yeah, that was the day we left. Yeah, CNN, same guy, Lieutenant Dan Fulkerson. CNN was there, and they were telling him that they got there in Grenada on October 19th because they were covering the stories of bad things happening. He said, but they got kicked off by the Cuban military on the 22nd of October. And Lieutenant Fulkerson says, well, we got here on the 25th and we didn't get kicked off.
All right.
Yeah.
On that note, I think we'll end our recordings here.
Okay.
And